talk about the upcoming midterm elections. I want to talk about Planned Parenthood and NARAL, Pro-Choice America, and their campaign strategy for educating voters about women's health issues, about reproductive rights issues, and the ways in which I think they are continuing to fail to recognize one simple fact. And that one simple fact is that Black women are saving white women from themselves. Now, I have to point this out before y'all start typing at me saying, oh, well, it's not all white women that blah. Stop it. I'm not talking about stereotypes. I'm talking about voting blocks. And the fact of the matter is, Black women have been the most reliable voting bloc when it comes to delivering Democratic victories, which happen to coincide with reproductive rights victories since about 1980. And so I find it frustrating when I get emails from Planned Parenthood that say things like, well, the title of their campaign is Women Are Watching. And it makes me wonder, which women are you talking about? Because in the last several elections, in 2012, the presidential election, and in 2013 with the election of Terry McAuliffe to the Virginia governorship and Bill de Blasio as the mayor of New York, Black women have shown up. We've shown up in record numbers, and we've shown up to save white women from themselves. For example, the Virginia governorship election, Terry McAuliffe, 54% of white women voted for Ken Cuccinelli. 91% of Black women voted for McAuliffe. So had it not been for Black women, y'all would be living under the cooch. Let's talk about the de Blasio election. Black women. He won Black women 47% to 37%. Let's talk about the 2012 election. 56% of white women voted for Mitt Romney. 96% of Black women voted for Obama. So if it weren't for Black women and Black men, but I'm focusing mostly on Black women because I'm all about the Black women. So y'all are just gonna have to sit down and shut up for half a second. If it wasn't for us, y'all would be just head desking your way through a Mitt Romney presidency.
Well, actually, Imani Gandy.
No, you're fired. I quit. But the point is that, you have to remember that during the 2012 election, Mitt Romney pledged to get rid of Planned Parenthood, right? Mitt Romney said, Planned Parenthood, I quote, we're going to get rid of that. And so Black women prevented the defunding of Planned Parenthood. I think it was the 2010 budget showdown when John Boehner asked President Obama to defund Planned Parenthood or to remove money from the funding for Planned Parenthood. And Barack Obama just flat out refused. Now, under a McCain presidency or a Romney presidency, all of that funding would have been out the window. And so I find it frustrating. On the one hand, I understand that when Planned Parenthood says that it's going to reach out and try to educate voters, that it makes sense to try to educate the voters that don't seem to realize that women are people, to reach those women who don't seem to understand that they are people with human rights. And those human rights include the right to health care, and the right to health care includes the right to abortion and then the right to contraception. It makes sense to reach out to those voters who remain yet unconvinced. But while you're doing that, it would be nice to give a shout out to the Black women that have been holding it down for like years and years and years. And it would be nice when there are certain victories that arise. For example, when Terry McAuliffe won, the media headlines and the tweets from mainstream reproductive rights organizations talked about how it was feminists that won for Terry McAuliffe and it was women voters that won for Terry McAuliffe. Now, yes, it is true that women voters did win, but the problem is when you talk about women voters, the default is white women because the default in this country is white. That's white supremacy. That's the white-centric world that we live in. And so it really is incumbent upon Planned Parenthood Action Fund, upon NARAL, upon Emily's List, League of Women Voters, all of these mainstream reproductive rights and women's health organizations to make that distinction and to sort of give a shout out to Black people. Like, can a sister get a shout out for keeping transvaginal wands out of your vagina?
Shout out.
Thanks, Emily.
That is my best quote of the day. Can a sister get a shout out for keeping the transvaginal wand out?
I mean, it's really the Black women have a very tense relationship with mainstream reproductive rights movement because the mainstream repro rights movement wasn't built for us. Because when we came to this country, we didn't have any rights, legal or otherwise. We were forced to breed. We basically birthed this country from our wombs. I mean, that's just, we came here, they forced us to breed. What we bred became part of the forced labor workforce. And that's how the economy of this country got as strong.
The economy of the world.
Right.
So
slavery
has propped up the economy of the entire world.
Right.
So and I agree with you that the thing is they're scared. People are scared of saying black and black women. People, and it's okay. It is okay to say that. There was a tweet that what's her name, Gwen Ifill did on the Oscars when people were calling Steve McQueen African American, and she was like, "It's okay to just call him black. It's okay. Say it with me, black." Like, it's not like you're not saying it with some kind of angst that you feel like we feel that you want to hang us from a tree. It's okay to say black women outperformed in voting blacks, and it's okay that, and remember, Imani, just after the last presidential election, where was all the reports talking about the that we outperformed black people in general in voting. Right. And it was a story mainly from us, and people talked about it, but it's still not in the consciousness and a regular recurring conversation about our voting power, and how we are able to elect folks. The only thing they want to talk about is, we consistently vote Democrats. Well, we're voting people who have our best interest in mind. We're not going to vote someone in who we're just voting to be voting, and we're going to vote someone who is trying to put us back in some sort of bondage. We're not doing that, right? We are educated voters. We are, right? And so it's annoying, and this happens both in the Democratic Party, in terms of how they treat us, and sort of not in putting money in at the late stage of a campaign to sort of get us out the vote. They sort of don't do that, but we are educated voters, and we consistently elect people that help pull this country forward.
Right. And a corollary to that, I mean, something that really it's so crucially important that it boggles my mind that some of these advocacy groups, like Planned Parenthood, is a force to be reckoned with. Their action fund, I mean, the Sunlight Foundation report about the investments in the 2012 election, they got like one of the highest rankings. Something like, I think they invested in 12 races. All 12 of those candidates won. They invested in opposing 12 candidates, and all 12 of those candidates lost. They got like a 98% return on their investment in the elections. But it continues to frustrate me that they are focused so solely on abortion and contraception, and not on incorporating a reproductive justice framework into their work. And a reproductive justice framework would require that they put voting rights at the top of the priority list, because the bottom line is, if black people are prevented from voting, if this nonsense that the Republican Party is pushing about voter fraud, if that,
you know what you're gonna get probes.
Exactly, you're gonna get transvaginal ones. So it is a reproductive rights issue that black people are allowed to vote. It is a reproductive rights issue that you put those issues at the top of your priorities list. And I raised this issue on last Friday on Twitter. I said, NARAL and Planned Parenthood need to put voting suppression on the top of their priorities list. And I got in response a blog post from Planned Parenthood and a 2-year-old press release from NARAL. That's just not sufficient. And, and they say, we stand strong with our allies and with our partners. Well, what does that mean? What are you doing? And I'm not saying this is not to erase the work of the people who are in these organizations working on opposing voter suppression. That's not the point. The point is about a more visible campaign to show us that you are standing with us when it comes to voting, and that you recognize that when we vote, you win. When we vote, people who are Democrats, people who believe in justice and in human rights win. Black women, we are an electoral force, and I just want a shout out for it. Just like an email that says, "Hey, black lady, thank you."
Thank you.
Can I just get a thank you?